Hi, Lee.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Hi, pal. Very, very good. So it's a great pleasure to welcome, obviously, in my opinion, one of the best basketball coaches in the country. Obviously, you might argue differently. To our sports seminar. It's a great pleasure to have you, Lee. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, mate. Just enjoying furlough and spending a lot of time with the family, watching the little one grow up right in front of us is something that we wouldn't normally have. So we're cherishing every day.
Absolutely. It's something that obviously we're not used to, as in, because I bet you're used to coaching every day and things like that. How's that?
Um, yeah, I think there's times I get the itch where I want to do something. At this point in time, I want to do something different. The last 10 weeks have been very same. We've tried to break it up with loads of different activities, and obviously you're trying to still continue the little one's education, which has been great, and that's took the majority of our time. But the opportunity to probably self-develop, like a lot of other people are probably taking at this time, is just it's just not possible. I think sometime over the summer I'll sit down and really kind of map out what I want to do before next season. But for the most part, I'm enjoying the break.
Yeah, I say we do plenty of planning, don't we? So how is it trying to plan just like without the foresee of playing?
Yeah, I think I'm at the time now, at the point now where I don't want to know anything more. I've kind of come off social media as much as I can, and I don't want to see new things. I don't want to think about different ideas because I don't really have time to sit down and go through them. So it's you can't really implement them at this point in time. So I've got in my mind I've got a reading list. I've got a kind of a clinic list I want to go through before the season starts. Things that I think I could improve on, that things that interest me. But for the most part, at this point in time, I'm just kind of parking everything to one side, and I'll pick it up when I can.
Yeah, that's great. Taking you back now, Lee, then. So growing up, what was that like growing up? Where did you grow up?
Born in Gateshead, moved to Washington from probably I think around the age of 2, and I was there till 16. So it was fun upbringing. Sport was a kind of massive part. Obviously, being from the northeast, everyone's kind of massively into football, and so was I. Probably played every day that I can remember through childhood till probably mid-teens, around 14, 15, before I transitioned into basketball. But just growing up with like a lot of people in the region, good group of friends. There was probably like a core 5 to 7 of us. Where on a school night we're coming home, you're dropping bags off, and right, we're off. Again, it's back when you get called in for dinner, or you back when the street lights come on. There was something along those lines. We played pretty much football every day through the autumn and winter, and then kind of when spring came along and kind of Wimbledon started, then you kind of transition into a bit more tennis, and then the cricket came during the summer, so you transition into that. But sport was a massive part of kind of shaping who I am and kind of what I've become.
So
And
how did you transition to basketball then? So obviously you're saying you played football every day, because obviously that was the norm, I think, for kids, isn't it? It's what we're pushed into, or what we play because of its ease. So how did the transition to basketball happen?
through school, in school teams. So we were in our curriculum during the winter months. You started off kind of that first term back in September, going to October half term with football, and then it became too dark. So then during the October, November, January phase, it was more basketball. Rugby wasn't ever on our curriculum, so it was football and basketball were the two main things all the way throughout secondary school. And then obviously you transition to the summer sports post Easter. So yeah, must have been, I think it was year 9, year 10, I think late year 9, where got really into basketball. The Eagles were kind of there were Newcastle Comets when they first moved to Newcastle, and I think it was my first year of ever going to watch them play. It was their first year as the Eagles, so went to some games. Really enjoyed watching it, enjoyed playing it in school. Made the school team through the last 2 years of school, and then there was a club that I found out actually from the Eagles program. It was a friend of ours, Paul Douglas, he started his own club off in Gateshead because he was playing for Newcastle at the time. And he developed kind of what we would know as satellite sessions now all over Gateshead. So, I was going through the Gateshead 6 days a week. So coming in back in our time when we were younger, kids were kind of going wherever they wanted to go through the use of public transport by themselves. So I was finishing school around 3:20. I was walking to the kind of the main bus station in that area next to the school. A bus to Heworth. I got the metro down at Gateshead Stadium or Gateshead Interchange. I was getting another bus. I was walking to the stadium. So we were, Monday I was at Kings Meadow School just opposite the Metro Centre. Wednesday I was at Gateshead Stadium. Gateshead Stadium on a Friday. We had a games only session on a Saturday from 9 till 12. And then Gateshead Leisure Centre on a Sunday. So I was, I think 5 days a week. So I got heavily into it. Loved just every aspect of the game, the culture of the sport, the kind of friends I'd met through there. And then from that, once I'd left secondary school, went to Newcastle College for a year, did something like an introductory sports coaching course there. And then East Durham Basketball Academy started up in 98, 99. So I went to trial for that team, made the academy. So that became like a full-time basketball study thing that, is kind of going on throughout the country now. But that basketball academy was one of the first ones in the country. So every day we had practice 9 till 11 in the morning. We had classes 12 till 1 normally. And then there was like an hour's break. We'd go back and we'd play some more between 2 and 3. We had more classes 3 till 5. We played in the local league around East Durham, but then also played National League on the weekend. So we were pretty much playing 5 hours a day, and we were playing 2 or 3 games a week through the 2 years while studying. So it was just an immense learning experience where I was around 2 great coaches who had 2 different philosophies. One was.
Did you have any influences? So you talked about 2 great coaches. What were they like on you? So how did they influence you?
Well, I think when I first started, I had Dougie, who was as intense as they come. I think he's mellowed over time, but again, very focused, intense, but very good teacher. Great knowledge of kind of what the game looked like, how it should be taught, and how players kind of coming through should be coached to get to where they want to get to. And then and he had that inner city boner mentality, so it was kind of you don't back down from anyone. So he kind of taught you to work hard, taught you some skills, but then also stand up for yourself. And if you want something, if you put the work in, then there's an opportunity for you to possibly succeed if you keep going in the right direction. And then with him, Billy Spragg, who was the assistant coach for the Eagles for a long period of time, and Billy was obviously the yin to the yang of Dougie. So he's not intense and in your face. Billy's more of the person I kind of went to have kind of one-to-one conversations about, how do I deal, how can I deal with this situation a little bit better? How can I interact with teammates and vice versa? And then from there, so I went to East Durham and I had pretty similar experiences with Bob Martin. Bob's an American guy who's been around the country for 40, 50 years now. Very intense, hardworking, but he had that kind of friendly undertone to his voice at all times. And there was always he always related everything through stories of his upbringing and his playing experiences. So there was an element of humor that kind of came with it. So he kind of further instilled the work ethic side of things, while also kind of he made you enjoy it. He really brought the enthusiasm out of everybody who he kind of came into contact with. And then I had Craig Lynch, who was the Eagles coach at the time. And Craig was more cerebral. He was really trying to get to the mental, the psychology side of things. And that I've always enjoyed kind of both aspects of basketball along those lines. So I've always enjoyed the work and hard aspect, but I've also enjoyed the kind of chess, cerebral side of things. So there's a lot of moving pieces in basketball at all times. Personalities, the skill level, physical attributes of people, what you can do then with the tactics side of things. And I've always had a real desire to understand and work within the tactical side of things. So it was a passion that kind of helped grow. And then from those 4 kind of coaching personalities, that really kind of shaped me and my coaching philosophy in the early stages. And then from that, over the years, I've kind of grown and adapted through my own experiences.
So you've talked about your coaching philosophy there. So you've worked with coaches, and the words you've used are like approachable, experience. So is that something you took forward when you decided, I want to go into coaching?
Yeah, I think and our second year at East Durham, we actually won the national championship, so the National League for under 20s. It was one of the kind of last couple of years that age group actually happened. But during that time at the academy, I was playing with people from all over the country, and I was looking at them and thinking, long term, I've got more of a future in coaching than I do playing. I was kind of positionally, I didn't have the physical attributes kind of moving forward that I needed to, and probably because of that, and it kind of really forced me to look around and thought, I really love the game. Probably coming to it late, really, 14, 15. I want to stay involved. Coaching something that really intrigues me, and I think I'd be passionate about it and want to get better at it. And then during that the summer, I used to work with Dougie, and he had summer camps going on throughout, so I used to coach with him for the 5 weeks of the summer holidays, 6 weeks of the summer holidays every summer. And then once I left college, like most people, when they get into coaching, you do it at the grassroots level. So community schools programs, either working for a club or for a local government authority. So I did that through kind of more Gateshead and Newcastle way early on, and then kind of the later years when I settled in Durham more through this way. But just really taking Bob's enthusiasm and how he tried to inspire people to work hard and have fun. I tried to take that into the primary school setting, grassroots level that I was working with, but then kind of the approachability that kind of I went for with Billy, and then the cerebral and technical skills coaching side of things that I got from both Dougie and Craig, and that kind of helped me get going. And I've always kind of taken a lot of pride in what I do within coaching. So from the get-go, even primary school level, coming out of every session, I just wanted it to be better each and every time. So that kind of forced me to think about how I would organize the sessions, how I would organize the groups to try and maximize the attention span, because you're working with kids 4 years old to 10, 11 years old. The attention span's short. You've got somebody new coming in who's trying to teach you something, but you're enthused because it's something different. It's not a teacher. So it really forced me to look at the organization of a kind of the sessions I was doing, the language I'd use with the children. Not intensity is probably the wrong word, but the game is played in a dynamic environment. So everything I tried to do in a dynamic environment. So I eliminated the staticness that you can often see in that kind of grassroots level. Because kids just want to run wild. So you've got to try and control the chaos, but you've got to do it within a certain type of framework where they're enthused about not just running around, but the game itself, and maybe taking it forwards as they get older. But if they don't, then you've impacted their physical literacy at that age, and give them hopefully the tools to go off and do other things within sport, or even if it's just everyday life and a lifestyle thing to stay fit and healthy. So, but yeah, that was kind of the early stages.
I mean, obviously, in basketball in this country, thinking about aspirations, about playing, moving on, I don't think there is much, obviously, for playing at a high level. In football, you've got the aspirations of playing in the Premier League and everything like that. And obviously, you said at an early age you wanted to go into coaching. So where do the players look to go to in this country when they are playing at a high level? Where is their aspiration to go? Is there any aspirations, or is it just...
No, I think over the last... I mean, there's always the dream to go to the States for their college education and continue to play there. And I think that more so than ever is, one of the big stepping stones for people to be able to.
Is that quite feasible for people in this country? Because obviously we talk about in America how highly skilled they are, and even like the bad players or the players who can't make it come filter into Europe. So how feasible would that be for like young lads to go over to America?
No, it's massive. I think there's something around 150 over there at this point in time right now. I think it's more because the game's become more of a global game. It's always been big in the prominent parts of Europe, but then also it's obviously massive in the States. And when you look to the States in the NBA, a lot of the top teams looked to Europe to find those gems that some of the other top teams in the NBA didn't have to make the league more competitive and give them a stepping stone. So then that's filtered down to the college level as well, which is right underneath the NBA. So college, you've got your established college teams that have been there throughout the decades, but it's the ones underneath now that are obviously looking to reach out into Europe to find ways to be more competitive. If they can't have access to the top kids in the States, could they get access to the top kids in Europe that could actually move the performance needle in the direction where they can compete at the top end of their competition? And you see them more and more. I think, every year I'm trying I work currently for Durham University, and I'm trying to recruit Europeans, Americans, British players. So every year I'm looking through a database, and you'd be surprised with just how many kids from all over the world are constantly competing within America right now. But then from a British standpoint, once they come back from the States, there's opportunities more and more now to play domestically in the men's BBL or the WBBL. But then you've also got probably the top end of that group also then looking to play professionally in Europe, and we've got people that are playing all over Europe right now in some top leagues. So there's definitely more options now. I don't know if it's more than they've ever been, but there's more of a social media side of things and more promotion, so you can see a steady flow going to the States and coming back domestically or venturing out into Europe. So yeah, there's more and more opportunities every day, I would say.
So obviously linking into back to yourself, you obviously went into a grassroots club at Hartlepool Heat. How did that come about? Because obviously coming out of Durham and moving towards Hartlepool, and then obviously you were quite focused and focal point of creating that club. Who obviously you went on. So working at foundation level, how did that help?
So when I was when I left college in 2001, I started doing stuff with a local basketball club, a Gateshead basketball club in Wickham. So I was working there first with, I took an age group through like under 14s, under 16s National League. So we were practicing 2 times a week while competing in the National League. So we were playing teams from Liverpool, Manchester, Sheffield, Birmingham on the weekend there. And I was doing, that was kind of like a secondary job. The grassroots side of things paid more of the weekly, monthly bills, and then the National League side of things with the club kind of topped that up to make it like a decent salary. Because I think early on when people envision getting into coaching, there's so many people that want to get into coaching, so there's so few paid jobs and paid on a good level that you have to take multiple. I was taking multiple coaching jobs, so I was coaching for the local council, I was coaching for the club in primary, secondary schools as well. I was coaching for the National League stuff on the weekend, and then I was still doing that when I was working, in Hartlepool. When I was with you guys, I was doing some stuff at Durham University. I was still doing stuff with Gateshead Basketball Club. There was a point where the Gateshead Basketball Club started coaching. There was an opportunity for a girls program, and I'd just come off kind of a 1.5, 2 years break, and Billy called me up and said, we've got this team, nobody wants to coach them, would you be interested? And I said, why does nobody want to coach them? Because it's a bit worrying. And it was basically a stigma on coaching girls. It's nobody wanted to be in, there was a limited amount of people who wanted to be involved in girls sport. And I was like, well, why can they not play? Why would there not be an option for them? So I started coaching girls and boys at the club throughout so I was coaching a girls under 14s and boys under 14s program, and I took each team through the age groups of 14s, 16s, and 18s. And then it became a point where half of the Gateshead team were too old for an age group. So I had a core group, but I didn't have enough for a team. And Hartlepool, he had a core group, but didn't have enough for a team. So there became a merger there. So it became a team that was both Hartlepool based and Gateshead based. So we were training Gateshead one day of the week, we were training Hartlepool the other day of the week. Our games, I think, varied across both Hartlepool and Gateshead as well. But then that led to an in at Hartlepool College later on down the line, where you guys saw the benefit of having a sport and education program working hand in hand to attract kids that might not necessarily want to come to college for their education, but might want to come for their education and sport if we could link the two together. And having the experience constantly of kind of working with the grassroots side of things, and then having an opportunity to do some form of performance orientated coaching within a National League setting kind of tick both boxes for me, because it helped me at the grassroots level to continue to be able to find ways to teach skills to younger, more experienced players. But then also I had the opportunity to develop the tactical side of things within the team National League environment as well. So, I was on 2 journeys, and I was getting so much experience during that time. You think about, I was probably coaching 3 or 4 hours a day during the primary school stuff, and I was coaching 4 hours a week of performance coaching, if not more. Sometimes I managed to get in a 3rd session every now and again, and then I'm coaching a boys team and a girls team on a weekend, so I'm getting 4 hours of performance coaching, game coaching on a weekend, and I did that for 7 years maybe. So,
I mean, we talk about, I listened to a report the other day about people talking about coaches, and there's a lot of stigma now around coaches must be educated and coaches must be do all these courses. But some of the coaches said the best way to learn is coach. Is do it. But obviously, I still understand the importance of the theory behind what we're doing. But as you're just saying, 5 to 6 hours per day of coaching, that must have really built up your knowledge to help you develop.
Yeah, I felt that obviously you're learning through your successes and trying to find ways to have those successes across many different situations as possible. But then there was always sessions, games, things that happened in a session or a game where you just think back and, oh, that was awful. Or I always feel like if I feel it's awful, everybody else probably feels it awful, and I just can't have that. So you're then looking for different solutions through those failures to find some successes, challenge yourself to come up with different ways of doing the same thing that resonate with the people that you're working with. Because if they're not getting it or they're not enjoying it for whatever reason, then they're either going to stop coming, go somewhere else, or ultimately they might just stop the sport altogether. So that the experiences that you gain through on the floor are very important. But I do think that now trying to educate myself more off the floor and trying to learn the craft of coaching even more, it's great that we've got all these experiences, but we can move from team or session to session to session, but these kids have only got one childhood and one opportunity to be a good professional if that's what they aspire to be. So we can't mess it up by not knowing or not taking the opportunity to kind of further develop ourselves and get a better understanding of what our role is in their journey and how we can better help them along the way.
I mean, so obviously we were lucky enough to get you at the start of your coaching career to come and work at the college and obviously develop girls through an educational program. And you took a group of girls who probably 3 or 4 of them played and another 3 or 4 didn't, to national champions. How did you manage to do that? What was the secret?
I think I've always found it, especially with Northeast basketball, that if we don't really tend to get them young enough, so there isn't really a strong element of play for them before they really get to maybe under 14s. So there's not enough domestic competition through schools or central venue leagues where they gain a lot of experience. So in the early stages, when they're going through playing on a national stage, the results are really bad. In terms of scoreline, the effort's there, the application to try and do the things that we've worked on is there, but because they've had so few playing experiences and their skills challenged in a way where they're forced to grow and develop, the success isn't normally there at that early stage. But when you're working in that further education environment between 16 and 18, I've always found Northeast basketball tends to kind of come into its own then, and you tend to compete more on that national level. So we had that kind of core group of 5 or 6 girls who'd been through those struggles, learned their lessons, improved their skills, and then you had a group who didn't, but were willing and enthused to kind of grow and develop, and they all meshed well. It was kind of that perfect storm where you get the right group at the right time. They've had the certain amount of experiences. You've got a core group and some leadership within that can help lead the way from some of the younger, inexperienced people. I've been through my experiences as well, so it's my job to try and with the more inexperienced players, it's trying to find ways to incorporate them, put them with the right people that can bring out their strengths with the experiences they've had at this time, try and put them in situations on the floor where they've got an opportunity to succeed if they work hard, if they're concentrating on what they need to at that time, and they apply themselves and the skills that they've learned in the right context, then you can have some positive results. And we did that. That group had a lot about it all the way through the year. They had some ups and downs, but learning through the course of that season, everything came together at the right time, and we made those national finals. So it was a great time in my career, and some great experiences that I often think back over the course of the years now, and the fun times that we had there, and what we had as a staff, as well as the experiences that we had with the students and players. It was just a great time to be around the college.
I mean, what was great about obviously that group of girls was they came to college. Some of them had never played basketball before, some did, but you turn them into a group of well-drilled, and at times you worked them so hard, but there was no motivation for them to come every week. There was no financial reward. There was no but they were still there week in, week out, and the motivation and the success. And sometimes you were, and obviously we've talked about this, you were quite brutal with them in the training that you did. It was tough. They were coming off sessions dripping with sweat, sometimes feeling sick. But then some of these girls have now who now work in the industry as in sport. So I don't think you were just instilling good beliefs to these girls, which I think has helped them, because I say a lot of these girls now we see in Hartlepool are working in good jobs. So do you take credit from that as well?
I don't know if I take credit in it. I think you have to try and we tried to create an environment and a culture where they were challenged to be more than they are, and try and challenge them even more than what they were going to see in competition outside of our area, whether regionally, nationally, over our time together. And I think they, with that group, you had people who wanted to work hard, they wanted to get better, they saw themselves getting better, they saw themselves having more success, so they then worked harder again, they got better, and it was just one of those cycles where I was pushing them and trying to force them to be more than they are at that time, but then quickly it wasn't so much of a force. They took ownership of it. They saw the benefits to what they could be, and then from that, it's clear sailing after that. If you've got somebody who wants to be good, willing to put some thought and effort into becoming something more than they are, then after that, you're just a sounding board for them. You just keep throwing different situations and scenarios at them. They'll keep coming up with some answers. There's a lot of bumps along the way, which is good. I think more, we kind of briefly touched upon this, earlier when we spoke. It's becoming more and more that it's not okay to fail. It's not, in today's society, failure is like looked upon as a bad thing. and you're gonna have some. You're gonna, if you hang around long enough, you're gonna have more losses than wins. There's so many more. You can have more bad experiences than good, but those bad experiences can then drive. If you're passionate about it, you want to grow and learn. You learn more from those losses and those bad experiences than I think you do the good, because it provokes some thought of self-reflection, forces you to look at where you are, what you're doing now, what you could do differently if you could do it all over again. And I think that's where the growth comes from, and the success. It's the setbacks that you have along the way are the things that really kind of set you forward on the right track to being more successful as the years go on.
So obviously you did a lot of the coaching, and you did a lot of coaching on the field, but I don't know whether you wanted to or we were pushed, but you went on to do a foundation degree, and you did a degree in sports coaching. I know me and you have talked about the education side. How did you find the education side alongside the practical side? Did it help you?
I think it did. I think I've always had the desire and thirst to kind of grow knowledge. Like during this time, as much as I've not done any CPD things, there's been so many coaching clinics on a daily basis. I think I've recorded somewhere in the region of 250 to 300 things that have gone on since mid-March. I think I've maybe watched 30, 45 minutes so far, because I don't have the time with kind of the setting that we're on right now, with kind of family life. But it's there. Like I've always had that. I've always wanted to know more around loads of different subjects that I think, could be things that I could help people with along the way, better educate myself. So the learning, I've always wanted to learn, and the learning's always been there, but to have it in that formal setting within the classroom was something that I don't know if I would have necessarily chose to do if I wasn't twisted into doing. But I loved it. We had a great group of people within that foundation degree, good lecturing staff, and within that, it helped challenge my thinking along and how to better question the things I believe in, the things that other people were telling me, are good practice, and forced me to challenge myself and other people on their beliefs, which has then helped me grow and learn. So instead of just taking what I'm being told in a classroom, I'm really challenging lecturers, I'm challenging the people around me, challenging myself. Is this the best way of doing things? Is there another way to do this? How could this impact me? How could this impact the people around me? So I think with that, it really opened my eyes to different learning from different areas that I might not necessarily have found if I hadn't done that degree. So I would generally, hand on heart, recommend it to people, moving forward. If you want something, a career within sport, things like that, can give you a framework, because I've had a coaching philosophy. I've never known I had a coaching philosophy until I'd start doing foundation degrees, and you kind of find out the true ins and outs of it, and what's led you to be there and get to where you are right now. So it was definitely something that kind of helped me get to the next level from where I was at the college at that time.
Because then you evolved into coaching at elite basketball, because in 2013 you were appointed coach of the Durham Wildcats, obviously in the National League. So how was that evolution to coaching at a top division club? And obviously results matter now, don't they? So it becomes really important to win. Winning's now become a culture. How did that change and how did that help?
Well, I think parallel. So from before I got to that, so I had the grassroots level basketball, and then I had the performance level basketball with the National League side of things. But then on another road running parallel to those two things, I was also involved in the national team system. So from 2005, I was the England under-15 girls development squad assistant coach, for that first year, and I became the head coach of that program in 2006. So then you've got grassroots, the National League, and then you had the international side of preparing for international basketball. So having those three streams that I was traveling along at that time helped build the experiences, because in a national level, again, it's a results. Even in the age group side of things, there is a results side of it.
Do you think that's important though, to have that, to give these young kids winning is important? Because people are talking now about just playing, enjoying. I'm a big believer in winning. Winning, life's a journey. You've got to win. You go for an interview, there's 3 of you there, you want to win. So it's instilling things. So do you think it's really important to instill the importance of winning?
I think it's important to accept that it's part of it, for sure. I think you can't go through it. I think, you get can you perform without the development, and can you develop without any performance? I think you have to. I think winning's a skill in itself. I think you have to teach through the winning and losing. You're teaching a lot of life experiences. So, you're teaching the choices that you make throughout the course of the week, whether in your preparation for your nutrition, your hydration, sleep, your recovery from your pre-practice stuff, how you practice during the game, during practice, sorry, how you recover, how you mentally prepare. All those things impact your performance, and impact in the winning and losing. And through the successes, you're finding joy, and you're learning what it takes to be successful in that environment. And a lot of these things, in sport, transcend sport into everyday life, and into life itself. And then you're also learning that some of the choices that you make might not be the best choices at times. There are consequences to that, to the people around you, yourself, and the success that in a team sport, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if you've got people making poor choices throughout, before they even get to the court or the game, and then making poor choices during, then it's going to impact upon everybody else. And through that, if you make some bad choices and obviously you don't come out on the right end of the result, there are eyes looking at you, because you made some choices. Everybody else around you knows you made bad choices. So there's that accountability to, okay, well, I need to be better. I can't do that if I want to remain a part of this. And if as a team, as a group, or a club, our aim is to win and be successful. If I want to be a part of this, then I can't make those bad choices. Otherwise, I'm not going to be a part of it. And I think so. Winning, not just the game, but everything about the sport, the punctuality side of things, your appearance side of things, all those things go into an outcome. But the process along the way will help you kind of get to where you want to get to, and instills a lot of life lessons, that will help your family have some success, stuff that you're passing down to the next generation coming through. So I think winning is important, and I think how you reflect upon how you handle yourself through all of everything that's going on will help grow, again, both on and off the court, to help you have the best life you can possibly have, hopefully.
Yeah, because obviously in basketball, there's a lot of arguments because it's not very well supported, and funding gets cut because of not winning. Because obviously they talk about the Olympic Games. Do you find it hard to develop people without that funding and the support from obviously the local government, and obviously BBA and things like that? Is it hard to really generate the funds so you can get in? As you said, some of these kids don't get basketball until they're 14, 15. By then, the fundamentals is harder to pick up, I would say. So getting that money in to go, do you know what? Let's teach them from a younger age. Do you think that'd give us a better chance as a country?
Yeah, definitely. I think the younger you start, just introduce them. And again, it's not. I think there's a lot of you do want to introduce them at a younger age, but also they don't need to be sports specific at that younger age, which I think is where a lot of things get lost. I think there's a general fear of, in the girls side of things, it's, we don't want to lose people to netball, and, or, women's football is an equal threat if you're looking to, if you're looking for avenues for girls to kind of really grow in sport. They're probably the three sports that, in my mind, basketball, well, I'm sure netball, basketball, netball, and women's football are probably the three dominant sports, I would say, in my eyes, in this country, where we could lose to people too. But when I was growing up, like as I mentioned earlier, we played different sports during the season. So, for basketball, introducing them to the sport at an earlier age and helping them grow and some enthusiasm and possibly love the game is a vital part for us moving forward if we want to really reach our full potential. But then also, I personally would want to see them go off and play other sports that will help develop a more robust person. And the more challenges and experiences they get across many different sports can only help grow the experiences of the people that you do get to work with at the top end. And from that, you're more likely to get a more successful team and more successful program through the many life experiences that you can grow through the people that you work with.
Yeah, I mean, I have many discussions around, because obviously I come from obviously the footballing background and my coaching football, and you see young kids at 5, 6, 7, they've already pigeonholed themselves to football, football, football. But learning different sports totally helps develop the fundamentals. It helps other sports, and the average is they're probably not going to be footballers. So having these other skills really helps. So playing other sports is good, and as you said, having that journey is great for them.
Yeah, I think. Well, my wife's actually started a baby basketball company, so it's not getting any younger than that. So she's starting off at a year and a half, all the way up to 5. So the classes vary, but within that, it's more using basketball as a delivery platform to teach physical literacy, some life skills through the early stages, and with the interaction of the basketball, then if they go on to grow and become part of the sport in some way, shape, or form down the line, that's great. But if not, then the balance coordination, the agility, the many different things she's doing with hand-eye coordination, a lot of balance and agility stuff through cones and beams and running, jumping, landing, all those things are going to help develop the kids that she's working with across a variety of different sports. And I'm actually, one of the things I am going to look at over the summer, it's one of the clinics I've seen, it's around the reintroduction of athletes coming back from injury to practice. And I think that's becoming more and more of a focal point of the job and things I've seen over the last 10 years. The amount of kids, that I'm seeing at 10 through 16 that have got a knee brace on or an ankle support on because they haven't had the specificity. It's easy for me to say in the sport. They're having stress breakdowns in bodies because they're not developing full muscle groups. They're just generally relying on the muscles that are dependent for their sport. But as soon as they step outside of that sport, then the body's breaking down. And I think, if you think about the running, jumping impact of just playing one sport, the physical contact of just playing one sport from 5 years old, by the time they get to 16, they're going to have so many bumps, bruises, breaks just from overuse. And sports becoming more and more a year-round thing now, where there aren't any breaks, whether football, basketball, whatever. I think there's generally kids are encouraged to take two weeks off every season, but it's not generally. People would think, oh, that would be Christmas maybe, but if you're in performance sport like we are, international windows in basketball are over that Christmas period, so people aren't taking they're not taking that time off. It's generally just try and deload at the end of the year, but once that end of the season happens, you're right back onto preparing your body for the next year, the individual skills. The team success comes from the individual growth of each person during the off season and adding something different mentally, physically, technically, to allow the tactical side of things to grow and coaches to do more with them during the season. We have to, the development over the course of many different sports can definitely allow us to do more with these athletes, because if their bodies are broken, it doesn't matter what they've got. If they can't get on the floor and they're not able to perform, then what use is it?
So kids sticking to one sport. Do you think that's like created by parentals? So is it a parental problem that they pigeonhole the kid? They're just going to do this sport and not let them grow. Do you think it comes from the parents?
I think it's more. I think I wouldn't say the parents drive it. I would say that it's probably a sport thing more than anything else. I think the sport drives it through various different competitions and not really giving the kids an opportunity to relax and go do different things. I mean, and, you know, I've got a 2-year-old daughter now, and people say, you know, she's going to go into a basketball. She can be whatever she wants to be. If she, God forbid, I'd hate it. I would hate it if she has to go do swimming and gymnastics where she's, you know, you got to get them out of the house at 6 a.m. and there's every night and every.
You know that.
I'd hate the thought of standing on a football pitch in the wind and the rain through many years. But if that's what she wants to be, then that's what she wants to be. And if she wants to go, you know, and over the course of the years, you know, my wife and I will definitely encourage her to do various different things, you know, dance, gymnastics, trampoline, and whatever she wants to do. And I think the more she does, the better she's going to be set for a future.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've got 2 daughters, and I tried to get them both to play. Well, my youngest daughter's 6, and my oldest daughter's now 22. And I tried to get them to play football, having none of it. So I was a dance dad for many, many, many years. But obviously, moving on, you've now developing people at Durham University, because obviously you're coaching there. How do you find then coaching at that elite level to get these players? Because obviously you've got England players. You're now educating these players to play for their country. How does that then differ?
It's just continuing. For me, I've always tried to look at what's going on at the top level and try and backwards plan to kind of what they need at each age group. So, you know, when I was head coach in the under-15 England girls program, I was also involved in the GB under-20s program at the same time, with performance analysis for 1 year, and then I was assistant coach for another year. But for those 2 years, I was working with the under-15s they were just getting started on their national team experience, because the first real competitions they will participate in is England under-16s, or as it is now, GB, and then it's 16s, 18s, and 20s. And then seniors. So I was working with them at the start of the journey, but then also getting to see what it was like at the 20s end, at the end of that youth age group level before they left for seniors. And I was just backwards planning it down. So as I then transitioned to higher education with the 18-year-olds to 20 or 18 to 21, because I'd had that under 20s experience, I kind of knew where, you know, I was looking at where the 18s were that I was working with, and what the top players look like at their position in the country. And then you sitting down with them to kind of create their own roadmap, because they need a lot of ownership in it, because they have to want, you know, they want to play for the national team. So that journey's not over until they want it to be over. So as long as they want to be involved, you try to, you know, map out kind of, you know, where do you think you are currently within your skills, knowledge, understanding, technical experience. You know, there's a lot of different aspects of being a successful player. Work out where they are, what their strengths are, where the gaps are, you know, where they see their gaps, where I see their gaps, where are the gaps between my gaps and their gaps, and just try and work with them on a daily basis to help fill them in and give them the best possible chance to succeed. And then some of them are now playing with the senior squad.
Just from me listening to that as a coach, you're saying you're taking it from an under-20 level. Would you be honest with these players to say you need to be at this level? So if you're seeing somebody at under-20 and under-18s doing these drills and running this fast and jumping this high, would you say to people, you've got to be better? It's got to be done to be at that level?
Yeah, I think that's where you've got to try, but at the same time, you've got to try and keep an honest perception of kind of the age group. You can't take, and I think that's a lot of the stuff you see with at the grassroots level. Grassroots coaches, a lot of the time, I feel when I watch stuff, are taking stuff from senior level and trying to recreate it at that grassroots, and you can't do it because they're not ready for it. And it's the same with the 20s and the 15s. It has to. You're trying to put some standards in place and some benchmarks in place that are setting them up to keep building upon from 15s to 16s to 18s to 20s to give them the best possible chance to succeed. So it was massive for me to kind of see where they're at, but then try and recreate the 15s and 16s. But it's really hard because you're working with, teenage kids who they want to be at that level,
Yeah.
but they don't know what that level looks like, and they don't have anybody around them. There's nothing, that's one of the probably the weaknesses in our sport. We have great role models. There are great people involved in both the men and women's side, but access to them and their upbringings and their experiences and how they felt at specific times where they've had success or the failures. I was at national team level as a head coach. Each year, I had a squad of 30 girls, but I could only take 12. So at some point during that, you're telling 18 girls who are 15, 16 years old, you are not ready for this right now. And that's incredibly difficult because you've got the emotion, you form some form of friendship and attachment to the people that you're working with. But then to have to come out and say at this point in time, this is not for you, it was really, really difficult. And the choices you're having to weigh up. Do I like this girl more than this girl? And does this girl fit in better with the group that we're taking more than this girl? And you weighing up all these different choices. And it used to, after having the conversations with them for 2 weeks at least after, I would be like, I'd be having these conversations back in my mind. Did I make the right choice? Did I say it the right way? But then ultimately you're thinking, you know what? They're not ready. They're not ready. You've done this fairly. You've looked at everything. You've took all the information and you've had conversations with the people around you, your support staff, the assistant coaches, the performance directors. But then it's okay for them to be told they're not ready right now. It's up to them to then respond to that. Because I'm not sending them away with you're not ready right now. What do you feel like you're good at right now? How do you feel that measures up with the people that play your position? What do they do well in comparison to you? What do you do well in comparison to them? So you've given them a roadmap of kind of, this is where you are, but if you work on these things, you can grow, and there's no reason why in a year's time why you can't be in the squad and somebody else might dip out. And that's it. There are people who are fortunate enough through hard work and dedication that they make the national team every year. And then you get some who make it at 16s who don't make it at 18s because they get satisfied and they stop working. And I've got the clothes now, I've got the badge, and I've done that. But then there are people who are told that you aren't good enough right now, who are then motivated to grow and improve, who make it at 18s. And there are some who might not make it at 16s and 18s, but then make it at 20s because they're late specializers or late growth. So it's really, being a part of that, you get to see that, you see the benefit of the hard work, the athleticism, the lifestyle, people really embracing what it takes to be a successful athlete. You see somebody who get a sniff of it, but then it falls by the wayside because they relax. And then you get people who are knocked back at the first gate, but then, push through, knock down that gate, knock down that door, and go on to thrive. But, I think, everybody's talking about the Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary and how he was cut in high school. He didn't make the team in high school, and then it drove him to get better. And he always challenges himself and doesn't want to be put through that experience again. So all these things are, lessons that you can learn and grow from. If you want to go into that performance sport environment and that high performance sport environment, it's part and parcel of the journey, but it's how you respond to both the positive and the failures that you'll go through at times that'll determine really how long you stay at that level.
I mean, I think you're talking about the Last Dance. I think that's brought basketball to the prominence of national exposure. But people in the basketball game would have known what Michael Jordan was like, would have known what Scottie Pippen was like, would have known what the Chicago Bulls were like because you've been involved in basketball. Do you think that's helped the exposure with obviously the Last Dance and obviously with the mentality side of things? Because obviously for me it was a fantastic watch as a coach, but obviously for someone like you who probably understands basketball and you understand the work ethic that went into being the best, do you think that's helped raise the profile?
I hope so. Yeah, I think there's been a number of conversations with people I've had who aren't involved in basketball that have kind of sought out a conversation to talk about it and the things that they saw, some of the things they liked, some of the things they didn't like around Michael Jordan and how he talked to teammates, how he held them accountable, and the way he held them accountable, the way he challenged them. And again, it's not for everybody, that level. And it's not to say that everything he did was right and some of the things that people perceive as wrong were wrong. It's at that level, that's what I think you look at, the challenge, the accountability, the growth. I think if you imagine, and I don't think people really look at it in this way, imagine having the expectation to be the best player at all times in all situations, and to be the best team, the team that doesn't lose. You're on top. Everybody below you, you're expected to beat day in, day out. And the mentality it takes to have to drive yourself to perform at that level. And if you've got that drive, and to have to physically be in that shape to be able to perform better than everybody else, longer than everybody else, because they were starting in, preseason starts early to mid-September. They don't finish till mid-June in the NBA Finals. So over the course of that year, if you add the 82 games, it's best of 5 games in the first round of the playoffs, then best of 7 in the semifinals, best of 7 in the conference finals, best of 7 in the finals. So they can be playing over 100 games, meaningful games, over the course of October 31st till mid-June. And the weight and expectation to have to live up to that every day isn't for everybody. But it was an insight to, if that's what you want to be, on some level, you're watering it down to whatever level you're working at. If kids and players are looking at this and want to know what it looks like to be at that level, they're going to have to, there was some of the things, I read some of those things that came out in the documentary during the time through magazines. There was a little bit through websites at the time, when we kind of, the internet really kind of got a grasp of kind of, the access you could get to players and their stories. But that constant message that he was competitive in everything he did, the work ethic, the breakfast club scenario, getting up at 6 a.m. to lift weights before then breakfast to then go to practice, and you're the first one there, you're the last one to leave, you're the most competitive, switched on person you can possibly be, and you're driving to win each and every situation individually, but then the people that are around you, but then have to carry it over into 100, 105, 115 games over an 8 to 9 month span. It was just an amazing insight to kind of what that looks like, and hopefully it's created and inspired some people to go out and kind of look at themselves and what they would like to do moving forwards.
I mean, for me, moving forward and listening to him and having that, people talk a bit about arrogance, but even the top players I played with at the level I played with, it was all about winning. They didn't care about anything else. And you hear about the Gerrards, the Cristiano Ronaldos, the Lewis Hamiltons. They're driven to win. And obviously, that's what you want. And even in business and in anything that you want, there's nothing wrong with that for me. Obviously coming from, you might say different from a basketball background, is there's nothing wrong with wanting to win off the court and on the court, 2 different people. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And then you linking that into Durham, do you have anybody like that at that level? So you're talking about your girls team who play in National League. You've lost, obviously, runners up in 2 national finals. Do you have girls who go on the court and just want to win and just have that drive?
Yeah, I had conversations with people, some people are involved in the GB senior women's team, some people aren't. And it was actually some of the ones who aren't that were, well, I'm not involved in national teams. I'm not trying to get picked for this or picked with that. I'm not going to make it. So I want to win. Like, everything that we do right now is about winning. I want to win games. I want to win trophies. That's what they're about. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. At some point during, from a performance pathway standpoint, it is about results. It is, like you said, whether it's a university funding the program, whether it's sponsors funding a club, they want success because the success breeds more opportunities for exposure, more opportunities to make money. And, and when you get to the top end, it is a business. It's a sports business, and there are things that come with that. If you want to play the sport at the top level, that you have to accept. There's certain things you'll go through life that you can control, and certain things you be able to influence. And there are other things that you're just going to have to accept, a part and parcel with the lifestyle that you've chosen. And if you want to be successful, you're going to have to fall in line to what those parameters are. So, for kids coming through, especially I think you look at it grassroots to introduction stuff. It is about taking part. It is about getting involved, having an understanding of what the game is, developing some fun and enthusiasm to it. But then there's some learning that takes place, and during the learning, through the next stages, you're looking at. Sometimes you're going to make good choices and you're going to win. Sometimes you're going to make bad choices and you're going to lose. Sometimes you might make the good choices and you still don't win because you're just not ready for that point in time. There's always somebody out there that's better than you, a team that's better than you, and in team sports environments where the variables to success are all over the place, you cannot go in, just taking your foot off the gas. Like, you think you've got this. You see it every year in the FA Cup. You see it every year in March Madness in the States. Teams that are considered the underdogs go in with the right mentality. They're working hard. They're making great choices. They're executing off the back of that, and then they upset top teams. But it's not an upset if you think about it in the terms of where they're out here. They've got a game plan. They've got the right people in the right spots. They're making great choices. The other team, for whatever reason, aren't coming in here to work hard. They're not really engaged mentally, so they're not making good choices. So you end up losing. That's not really an upset. If you go in with that mentality in any walk of life, you're going to fail, I think. But I think linking back to Jordan and the Bulls, every game they were going into, we have to come out and we have to perform as well as we can. And that led to, that all those things that go into high performance becoming habits and becoming a way of life. And that, you look at him now, and Jordan, the brand, and he still makes the most money off his shoes than any other sports person that's competing right now. His brand is making more money across the year on year, and he hasn't played for 20 years, I think.
Yeah, and obviously the pressure though that build, and I think as coaches, or for me, one of the things I try to do is try to replicate pressure and replicate realism, because obviously one of the things I think I learned through theory and through is replicating something that they can take on where your coach isn't there to help them. It's replicating the pressure and replicating the realism of game situations. Is that something you do as a coach?
Yeah, I think it's becoming, more and more the coaching art it's a player-centered approach, which you're trying to make yourself redundant as a coach, so the players are out there, they're making the choices based on their experience, their knowledge and understanding. And like you said, you're trying to treat, from in our game, doing what we call fresh air drills, so 1v0 skills with it maybe that aren't in context. It's just the actual action of performing the technique. Has got a bad rep, and it's got a bad rep because there's probably, I think there are stages that players go through in terms of learning. I think so often we don't teach fundamental skills, technical skills in the context in which they're applying. So I think in all sports, you've probably heard, people in football, I know people in basketball, they're good practice players, but they're not good games players. And that generally will come down to, in a controlled environment, when they're told what to do and they've got a good grasp of that specific situation, they go into autopilot and they're able to perform. But in games, when you have to recognize situations you're in, you've got to select the right skill for that situation, then you've got to execute the skill. If that's lacking, you're gonna get that weakness where they're only good in a controlled environment. So in basketball, we're trying to teach skills in context, where you're teaching the skill, you drill maybe 1v0 a little bit, but then you've got to try and put it into a context where there's a visual cue, that there's a decision to be made. You've then got to offer some read and react elements. So I think you've got to put some form of decision of, if the defender's standing this way, I'll use this skill. If they're standing another way, I'll use another skill. So there's the read and react to it. So you've got a go-to move, but you've also got to have a counter. But then you've also then got to allow them in a full 5-on-5 environment play, see if they can execute within that environment. And then you've got to ramp up the pressure in various situations, creating bumps in the road for them during that learning, where maybe they're playing against, just offering some examples of, maybe you're playing against somebody who's smaller than quicker than you, somebody who's bigger and taller, stronger than you. You put time and score elements into it. So you're really trying to develop people who have the ability to self-diagnose, adjust mentally, physically, technically, and tactically to the situations they're seeing, and be able to perform in the moment under pressure. I think that for me is what player development is about.
Yeah, it's creating choices for them, because as I say, I talk about being robotic coach, and you're going to do this, you're going to do that, this is going to happen. You can't replicate the game. You're just trying to create the choices that might happen, so they've got the answer within the game. Because obviously, we all train as hard as we want. It's the game. The game is what we.
I think the more and more I think about the coaching for understanding and the player-centered approach. I always like it. The more and more I think about this now, the more and more it just sounds like what I had as a childhood. So I was going out with a group of friends. There was no parents. They weren't taking me anywhere. The parents weren't picking the teams. There was no coaches or anything else there. There was a group of us. If we had an even number, we're maybe playing, like, we're going 3-on-3 and like a small-sided pitch. If we had an odd number, maybe we're doing something like Wembley singles, Wembley doubles, all those things where we're playing headers and volleys, so a constraint-led game where you could only score from a certain distance with a certain type of, all those things. And then you're within that, you're holding your own in your Wembley singles, or in your doubles, you're working with somebody, and then you're trying to work out what our strengths are in comparison to your strengths. How do we maximize our strengths, and how do we negate your strengths and make you play to your weaknesses? You're looking at, all right, I can't match up with Clarky. He's too fast for me, but I could take Sean, and I can, I'll handle Sean, don't you worry. But you're going to have to take Clarky. You got more chance. He can only go left, or you can only go right, force them this way. All those things took part through all the games that we were playing as when we were younger. The thing, even the stuff with tennis, and we're not playing a proper tennis course where I was growing up, and we're not in cricket. Like, we didn't have a full number, so you're working on angles and spacing. How do I maximize what I've got and what we've got as a group to come out with some form of success? And all of that was taking place without coaching. But it seems like now we're trying to formalize what we probably had through childhood into modern day society, where the kids they just grow up different, And I saw something recently from he's an NBA, well, he's a basketball skills trainer that operates worldwide, and when he talks about the modern generation of kids and working with them, you have to work with them from their generation, not from your generation. You can't be standing back, well, in my day we did this, and you can't, if you're coaching in that way now, I think you're probably going to have less fun and less success, because the kids just aren't wired like that. And that's not a knock on them. It's not like we're better than them. It's just, this is how they've grown up. This is a society that they operate in. When I first got into basketball, around 96, 97 was actually when basketball was the most accessible on TV, because there was 3 or 4 days a week there was stuff on Channel 4, and it wasn't British. So they weren't trying to do a British version of basketball where they compared it to football and football players. It was some British people with some American people. So you were learning their terminology, their experiences, how they played the game. And that then allowed me access to the best players in the world who were playing at that time. So Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Gary Payton, who featured on the documentary as well, and how he was known as a really good defender. So you look at what they did, what would work for you, and you try to emulate them and try to recreate the things that they did well in your own game. So then you had your role models were showing you the way forward and how the game could progress. And your size and your position, what skills you needed to succeed. And I think it really amazes me that the modern day player has the youth coming through. They've got so much access to information over the internet and games. They've got so much more access than we ever have had as kids, and it's there. But I think even now with the players I'm working with, even at the higher education side of things, you've got to lead them to the information. They've got no idea about, who are the good who are the good people at their position and what do they do well. And that's the thing when you speak to the modern day kids, it's what position are you? Well, I'm a point guard. Okay, well, what are the attributes that a good point guard has? I don't know. How do you know you are that? And I think that there's an education around all those things. And I think the more and more we can use the resources that are available and help show them and infuse them to go out and look at the world around them in terms of their sport and maybe outside their sport as well, and how it can help influence them and inspire them to go on and be more than what they are right now. And that for me is where probably there'll be a tipping point in basketball specifically. We need more examples of good people, good basketball players doing good things and what it takes to get there, because there are more and more things like the Last Dance documentary out there that if people look for access, I'm sure they can find ways to relate their own life experiences to what they're seeing in their idols and how they overcome certain things that happened in their lives and how they dealt with even the successes and how it motivated them to kind of grow and continue to be more. So it's really an exciting time for the kind of the young generation coming through.
I mean, it's obviously, chatting to you is always amazing because obviously, as I say, I learned transitioning from basketball to football. It's great. So obviously, getting your knowledge, and I think people who need to understand, as in, we coach football and we've got 5,000, 6,000 coaches out there for football. In basketball, there's probably not as many. And for me to get to talk to somebody who's at the top of the game, for my opinion, personally, it's outstanding. And your information that you just gave people is unbelievable. I can't thank you enough, Lee. Really appreciate your time. And obviously, I just want you to stay happy and stay safe, pal.
I will, my friend. I've really enjoyed it. As always, it's a great opportunity to talk to you and kind of catch up and chew the fat over different things. But like you said, I had opportunities to learn from you and Sharon and Sean. The times I was there, and Dave as well. I've got to give Dave a mention. But then also now, I've been a part of many courses moving forwards. I've learned a lot from rowing coaches, hockey coaches, football. The football as well. You've got so many different opportunities to relate what you do in different ways through different sports. And if it's not, there's not much in terms of the physical side of things that rowers might take from basketball, but there's an opportunity for me to see how they develop their physical attributes and how their mentality of staying focused and all those things translate. So the more and more people can reach out across sports, the more benefit it can have for everybody involved.
No, really appreciate your time, Lee. Thank you very much, pal.
No problem, mate. Take care.
Top man. Cheers, pal.
All right.